best-selling novelist and playwright Henning Mankell, here tonight to discuss his latest, The Man from Beijing. John Timpane, who reviewed the book for the Philadelphia Inquirer, describes The Man from Beijing as the work of a writer with the imagination, brains, resources, and joinerly craft needed to make thoughtful, challenging, exciting, artistic novels. Mr. Mankell's novels have been translated into 40 languages and have sold 30 million copies worldwide. His Kurt Wallander mysteries were recently adapted into a PBS television show starring Kenneth Branagh. He divides his time between Sweden and Mozambique, where he has worked as the director of Teatro Avenida since 1985. Following his presentation, Mr. Mankell would be happy to take your questions. I'll be walking around with a microphone, so please wait for that before you speak. And then he will sign copies of his books for you, which you can purchase downstairs on your way out of the store. Please join me in welcoming one of the most ingenious crime writers around, Henning Mankell.
I would like to start to tell you a story about New York. A few years ago, I visited a small country in Africa called Malawi. It is a small landlocked country. And I was there because I was visiting an archaeologist that was working there, and they were digging for bones from early humans, hominids. And they were working together with Malawians. And one night I spoke with one of the Malawians who had been digging there together with this archaeologist for many, many years. And I asked him, before they started to dig here, did you realize that human beings comes from Africa? No, he said, I didn't know. And then I asked him, but where did you think then the human beings came from? New York, he said. And I said, why is that? Well, everything comes from New York, so even probably human beings come from New York. And I remember this story when I came to New York this morning. I think it is a lovely story. One can dedicate a novel to a human being. I dedicate this night to that wonderful man in Malawi that told me what he had thought about human beings, where they came from. I do not remember his name, but I send him my dedication anyhow. It was a very wonderful man. I loved him very much. I would like to start by saying something about myself, and I won't talk about this novel yet. There are two things that must happen every day to make me ticking. The first thing is I really honestly need to laugh once a day. I really have to have a good laughter every day. If I do not have had that laughter, it is indeed a miserable day. That's one thing. The second thing is that I need to learn something every day, which does not mean that I have to learn something like you learn things in school or at the university. There is also something you could call a poetical learning. So when I turn off the light at night, I can tell myself today, now I know something that I didn't know yesterday night. So therefore, I would like to start by telling you something you don't know. And I will give you this small story as a gift. Since I am a storyteller, what better gift can I give you than a small story? And if you like the story and would like to tell it to some friends or family, you can do it. And please, you do not have to pay royalty to me. The story is for free. And this is a really wonderful story. We have to go back to Africa again. Out of Africa, we say. Today we know that human beings, the species of Homo sapiens, we came out of Africa. We came out of the Rift Valley in East Africa. And from there we expanded out in the world. But when we think about that expansion, it's very easy for us to think that suddenly there was a group of people that said to them, now let's get out of here. We don't stay here anymore. And then they start walking. Obviously, this is not true. But now scientists has worked with this question of out of Africa, and they have come to being able to prove and to confirm something very, very wonderful. They now know that the out of Africa, where the human beings first time left Africa and went out in the world, they expanded with the speed of 5 kilometers per generation. And I think that's wonderful. Because if I now think that with that speed, for me to go back to the hotel where I stay in New York, it will take quite some time. But I think there is some other profound truth in this. That human beings, we were created not to rush, not to run like we were chased by an animal behind us. We are patient animals. So when you think of how you are running or friends are running, try to remember that when we went out in the world, we did it with the speed of 5 kilometers per generation. You can imagine how many years it would take to go from Battery Park up north on Manhattan. It will take you some years. I think this is a beautiful reminder and a beautiful story about our most ancient history. And agree with me, you didn't know this. So now you know something you didn't know. Okay. This is just something that I wanted to say about myself. When does one start to write a book? Well, normally it's very difficult to point out. At this very moment, I decided to write a novel called The Man from Beijing. Normally. But just the fact, in the case of The Man from Beijing, I know exactly when I decided. And out of these more than 40 novels I have written, I think this is the only novel that I can say exactly when I decided to write it. Otherwise it is normally a process that takes some time. So what was it that made me decide to write this novel? Okay, you have to follow me now in your imagination to the country in Africa where I live lot of time every year, Mozambique. It is a country in East Africa. In the south it is bordering South Africa. In the north it is bordering Tanzania. If you go with me, fly with me in your imagination, and by the way, there is no better way to fly, to travel than in your imagination, because you don't need a ticket, you don't need passport, you don't need to have fill in all these strange formulas I have to fill in to get into United States. And besides that, you have a good space for your feet when you fly in your imagination. So if you go with me to Mozambique, 10 years ago, Mozambique is a very poor country, very, very poor. And 10 years ago, the Chinese government promised to give for free to the Mozambican government a new building for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. State Department, I guess that would be in United States. And of course, this poor government said, yes, please, oh, thank you very much. And then so the Chinese started to construct this huge building. But all of a sudden it came out rumors in the city that the Chinese foremen were treating the African workers badly. And then furthermore it came other rumors that said that there were Chinese foremen that were beating the African workers. And when I heard that, I thought, this is important to write about. It's important to write about what is happening now in the world when China is taking a new position in the world, which to me on one side is something very, very good. I mean, every fifth person in the world is a Chinaman or a China woman. 1, 2, 3, 4 Chinese. 1, 2, 3, 4 Chinese. 1, 2, 3, 4 Chinese. And obviously what happens in China is important for all of us. And if it is like